All right, so this time you've really thrown us a curveball. A whole bunch of stuff on AI, articles, research papers even.
Lecture transcript.
Yeah, a lecture transcript.
Yeah.
And you want to know how it all stacks up against, good old-fashioned human intelligence.
Right.
So today we're going deep into the world of intelligence.
Both natural and artificial.
Exactly. And how they've kind of shaped our world. And maybe even, saved it a couple of times.
And sometimes those saves were closer than you might think, especially during the Cold War.
Oh, yeah. You think nuclear war, and it's all, calculations and logic and stuff. But at least twice that we know of, human intuition was like, nope, and maybe saved us all from, total annihilation.
The stories of Stanislav Petrov and Vasily Arkhipov really highlight that. Cases where human judgment going against protocol even averted disaster.
Petrov, in 1983, he was monitoring the Soviet early warning systems. And all of a sudden, alarms are going off, the system saying incoming U.S. missiles, full-scale attack. But something felt off to Petrov, really off. He trusted his gut and basically decided it was a false alarm. And delayed reporting it, up the chain of command.
Talk about pressure, going against all the rules.
Right.
Millions of lives potentially at stake. But thankfully, he was right.
Yeah. Turned out to be a glitch. The satellite system.
Yeah.
And his actions, they probably stopped a retaliatory strike and prevented, World War III, basically.
It really shows the limitations of technology, even sophisticated technology. Sometimes a human needs to be there and make sense of it all.
Right. But then you have Arkhipov. During the Cuban Missile Crisis back in '62, he was on a Soviet submarine near Cuba when U.S. forces started dropping depth charges, trying to, force them to surface.
Imagine the tension.
Oh, I know. The sub-captain, he thought they were under attack, like a real attack. Wanted to launch a nuclear torpedo.
And protocol required 3 officers to agree to launch, but Arkhipov absolutely refused.
He just couldn't believe that the U.S. would, intentionally attack.
Right.
And thankfully, he convinced the others.
Turned out the sub was actually armed with a nuclear warhead.
I know. If it had launched,
yeah.
Chilling.
What fascinates me is that both Petrov and Arkhipov, they relied on something that AI, even today, struggles with. Intuition. Understanding context. They weren't just looking at data, they were considering human behavior, political tensions, the big picture. Can AI ever really do that?
It's the big question, isn't it? It leads us right into this whole idea of the AI ratio. How much human training do you need to get a certain level of intelligence from a machine?
Think of it like training a dog to fetch a beer from the fridge. It's pretty impressive, right?
Yeah.
But it took a lot of human effort to teach that dog. The more impressive the dog's actions are, the more training was involved. That's the AI ratio in a nutshell.
Right. So we might be amazed by Siri or whatever, but when it can't handle something like dividing by zero, it's a reminder that it's following a program, not, actually understanding. So where does that leave us when it comes to, AI taking on these more complex life or death type tasks?
That's exactly the issue. If you're talking about AI in warfare or healthcare, the AI ratio, that becomes crucial. Who's responsible when things go wrong?
We'll definitely need to come back to that later. But for now, let's shift gears a bit. You know how some people just dismiss AI as hype, right? Turns out lots of groundbreaking ideas have followed a similar path, from being ridiculed to being feared, and finally just becoming part of life.
Think back to the early days of computers. Even giants like IBM totally missed how important they'd become. And now, our smartphones have more power than NASA did back in the 60s.
It's amazing. But those computers, they were clunky toys for, hobbyists.
Right.
Then came the fear. They'll steal our jobs, control our lives, blah, blah, blah. Now, we can't imagine life without them.
And AI, it's on that same trajectory. First, it's ridiculed. Then it's feared, and then it just becomes so integrated into our lives we can't imagine a world without it. The challenge is navigating that dangerous stage responsibly.
Which brings us to something that's been making a lot of headlines, AI in the military. It's not a secret that a lot of AI research is funded by, the military.
Some sources say upwards of 90%.
Yeah. And Putin himself has even said that whoever leads in AI will, dominate the world. It's this race to develop autonomous weapons systems, drones that can make life or death decisions without a human being involved.
Makes you think about Petrov and Arkhipov, doesn't it? Relying on their human judgment.
It really does. But it's not all, doom and gloom. AI could also make warfare more precise, reduce civilian casualties, even help with peacekeeping.
It's definitely a double-edged sword. The potential for good is there, but the risks are huge, something we'll need to unpack more carefully later.
For sure. But before we go full Terminator, let's zoom out a bit and look at what we can learn from good old-fashioned natural intelligence.
I think one of the most exciting areas there is biomimicry, looking to nature to solve human problems. We've been doing it for centuries, even if we didn't always realize it. The Eiffel Tower, for example, inspired by the structure of human bones.
And Waze, that navigation app, based on ant pheromone trails.
Right. Ants use them to find the best route to food, and Waze uses a similar system for traffic.
It's such a great example of how observing nature can give us some pretty clever solutions. But it gets even wilder. A simple slime mold can design a more efficient rail network than, like, generations of human engineers.
Yeah.
Wait, a slime mold? Seriously?
Researchers placed the slime mold on a map of Japan, with food representing the major cities. And the slime mold, searching for food, created a network that was incredibly similar to Japan's existing rail system, and in some cases, even better.
No way. That's wild.
It is. Nature's had millions of years to, perfect its solutions. We're just starting to tap into that.
And it's not just mimicking individual organisms. It's understanding how collective intelligence works.
Right.
Ant colonies, beehives, even flocks of birds. They do incredible things by working together.
Which leads right into collective intelligence in humans.
Yeah.
It's not just about individual brilliance, but tapping into the wisdom of the crowd.
And we see that everywhere, from online communities to these citizen science projects.
Yeah.
People coming together to solve problems, share knowledge, come up with new solutions.
Right. And technology is helping facilitate this. Platforms like Wikipedia make knowledge accessible to everyone. Open source software lets people collaborate on projects from anywhere.
It's a powerful reminder that we don't have to do everything alone. There's this whole world of knowledge and expertise out there just waiting. But now AI is in the mix, and we have the potential to amplify that collective intelligence even more. Imagine systems that can analyze mountains of data, find patterns we'd miss, and come up with new insights. But that brings up another big question, right?
Right. It's not enough to just develop the technology. We have to ask ourselves, how do we make sure this collective intelligence benefits everyone, not just a select few? And how do we prevent AI from being used for, harmful purposes?
Exactly. But before we go down that rabbit hole, let's look at some real-world examples of how humans are already using their collective smarts to solve tough problems.
Games like Fold It and Recap TCHA are a great place to start. Fold It lets players work together to solve complex protein folding problems, important for drug discovery and disease research.
Right.
And Recap TCHA. It uses human input to digitize books and improve image recognition.
It's amazing how human intuition and creativity can outperform AI in areas that need, real-world understanding and problem-solving skills.
Yeah.
What stands out to you in those examples?
For me, it's the power of human ingenuity. We have this amazing ability to think outside the box, come up with creative solutions that AI just can't replicate.
And that creativity, it's more important than ever in a world that's, so reliant on technology.
It really is. And those games, they show that even in a world of algorithms, there's still this huge need for that uniquely human spark.
Totally. But as AI keeps evolving, it makes you rethink what we even mean by intelligence, knowledge, even wisdom.
It's a spectrum, right? You have raw information, then knowledge built from that information. Understanding is taking that knowledge and applying it. And wisdom, well, that's where judgment and experience really come into play.
And then throw something like Elon Musk's Neuralink into the mix, brain-computer interfaces that could give us instant access to information. It's exciting, but also a little freaky, right?
Blurs the lines. Imagine a future where knowledge isn't something you learn over time, but something you can just download.
Whoa.
What happens to education then? Social equality. Even what it means to be human.
Those are some deep questions. And I think they highlight the importance of not just, passively consuming information, but actively engaging with it.
Exactly. Like those Cold War heroes we talked about, we need to question assumptions, consider the context, and use our own judgment to navigate this increasingly complex world.
And speaking of navigating complexity, remember that idea we discussed? How groundbreaking ideas go from being ridiculed to dangerous to just obvious. It applies to AI too. But that dangerous stage, that's where things can get tricky.
It's like women's suffrage. For centuries, the idea of women voting was absurd. Then, as women started demanding their rights, it was seen as a threat, a disruption.
It's crazy how fear of change can make people resist even the most obvious progress. And we see that same pushback against AI job displacement, AI becoming uncontrollable.
But history shows that progress, it often just happens. Just like electricity, the internet, AI is becoming so integrated that soon we won't be able to imagine life without it. The key is navigating that transition thoughtfully, ethically.
And that's where the conversation about AI in military gets really interesting and potentially scary.
Right. There's so much hype about AI making warfare more precise, reducing civilian casualties, even helping peacekeeping efforts. But autonomous weapons systems, machines that can decide who lives or dies without human intervention, that's a whole different ballgame.
And when you think back to that AI ratio, it raises some serious questions about, accountability. If a machine messes up, who's to blame?
It's uncharted territory, ethically and legally. We need to have these conversations now before it's too late.
Absolutely. But let's not forget that AI can be a force for good too, right? I mean, it has the potential to totally revolutionize healthcare, transportation, even environmental protection.
It all comes down to how we choose to develop and use it. That's why everyone needs to be informed, understand both the potential and the risks, and be part of the conversation about the future we're building.
So true. But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to biomimicry. You mentioned the slime mold and the Japanese bullet train. Are there any other examples that just blew your mind?
Oh, tons. There's the Namibian beetle, which survives in the desert by collecting condensation on its bumpy back. It's inspired new designs for water collection systems. And then there's the gecko lizard, which can climb walls because of tiny hairs on its feet. That's led to the development of super strong adhesives.
It's incredible how nature has these elegant solutions for problems we've been struggling with forever.
And it's not just about copying nature's designs, it's about understanding the underlying principles, the way natural systems are inherently efficient and sustainable.
Which reminds us that we don't always need to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes the best solutions are right in front of us.
Exactly. And that takes us back to observation, curiosity, looking at the world with fresh eyes.
And speaking of fresh eyes, what about the potential for AI to, enhance our own observation skills? Help us see things we might otherwise miss.
That's a great point. We often think of AI as replacing human capabilities, but it can also augment them.
Like a super-powered magnifying glass, helping us see details and patterns we wouldn't notice on our own.
Right. In astronomy and medicine, AI is already being used to analyze tons of data and highlight anomalies that humans might miss.
It's like having a second pair of eyes, always looking for new discoveries.
And it's not just about visual observation. AI can help us analyze sound, text, even complex social interactions.
Like a sixth sense. A way of perceiving the world in ways we never thought possible.
And that's where things get really exciting. AI isn't just a tool for solving problems, it's a tool for expanding our understanding of the world.
So it's not about natural versus artificial. It's about finding ways for both to work together to complement each other.
Absolutely. And that's where collective intelligence comes in again. It's not about individual brilliance anymore. It's about bringing together diverse perspectives, human ingenuity, and AI insights.
Which brings us back to one of the core questions of this whole deep dive. How do we ensure that this collective intelligence benefits everyone?
It's a question of access, of education, making sure everyone has the opportunity to participate in this technological revolution.
And it's about values, right?
Yeah.
Making sure AI is developed ethically with a focus on, human well-being and social justice.
It's a big challenge, but I think we're up to it. We've faced tough challenges before, and we've always found a way.
And maybe, just maybe, this collaboration between natural and artificial intelligence will be the key to, a brighter future for everyone.
Now that's a thought worth pondering.
It really is a fascinating time to be alive, isn't it?
Yeah.
With all these advancements, it feels like we're on the verge of something big.
Absolutely. And as we go deeper into this world of intelligence, both natural and artificial, it's important to remember that progress isn't always a straight line. There will be bumps, unexpected challenges, and ethical dilemmas.
Yeah, and sometimes the biggest leaps forward come from those unexpected aha moments, like the ones that led to penicillin, the theory of relativity, even the Post-it note.
Exactly. Those moments when someone connects the dots in a new way, that's what drives real innovation. Think about Archimedes and his eureka moment. He was trying to figure out how pure a gold crown was, and while taking a bath, it hit him.
The volume of water displaced is equal to the volume of the object submerged.
Exactly. And boom, the principle of buoyancy was born. It's those intuitive leaps that AI, at least as it is now, still can't really do.
AI is great at analyzing data, finding patterns, making predictions. But that creative spark, that ability to think outside the box, still very human,
Definitely.
which is why it's so important for us to keep developing our own natural intelligence, our curiosity,
Yeah.
our ability to think critically and make connections.
And one of the best ways to do that is by, exposing ourselves to different perspectives, engaging in challenging conversations, always seeking out new knowledge and experiences.
It's like building a mental gym for our brains. The more we challenge ourselves, the stronger our thinking becomes.
Exactly. And that flexibility will be crucial as we navigate this increasingly complex landscape of intelligence, both natural and artificial.
So what does this all mean for you, dear listener? Well, it's clear that both natural and artificial intelligence are powerful forces shaping our world. The key is to understand their strengths and limitations, to embrace their potential while being aware of the risks, and to keep learning and thinking critically.
As you continue to explore the world of intelligence, remember that the journey itself is just as important as the destination. Embrace the challenges, ask questions, seek out different viewpoints, and never stop learning.
And don't be afraid to trust your gut. Sometimes the most profound insights come not from complex algorithms, but from that quiet voice inside you.
Beautifully put. It's been a fascinating deep dive, and I hope our listeners feel ready to navigate this ever-evolving world of intelligence.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.
It really is. And those games, they show that even with all the algorithms and everything, there's still a huge need for that, human spark.
Totally. But as AI keeps getting more and more, well, intelligent, I guess, it kind of makes you rethink what we even mean by intelligence, knowledge, even wisdom.
It's a spectrum, right? You've got like raw information and then knowledge, which is built from that information, and understanding, which is when you can take that knowledge and apply it, and wisdom, well, that's where judgment comes in, and experience.
Like levels,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then you throw something like Elon Musk's Neuralink into the mix.
Right.
Brain-computer interfaces that could potentially give us instant access to information, like just download it into our brains. It's kind of exciting, but also kind of creepy, don't you think?
It really blurs the lines. Imagine a future where knowledge isn't something you learn over time, but something you just download, like a file.
Whoa.
What happens to education then? Social equality, even what it means to be human.
Heavy stuff.
Uh-huh.
But I think it highlights just how important it is to, not just passively absorb information, but to really engage with it.
Absolutely. Just like those Cold War heroes we discussed. Question your assumptions. Consider the context. Use your judgment to navigate this world, which keeps getting more and more complex.
And speaking of navigating complexity, remember that framework we were talking about before? How groundbreaking ideas often go from being ridiculed to dangerous to just, obvious. Well, it totally applies to AI, but that dangerous stage, that's where things can get a little dicey.
Like with women's suffrage. For centuries, the idea of women voting was just absurd. Then, as women started demanding their rights, it was seen as a threat, like it would disrupt the entire social order.
It's crazy, right? How fear of change can make people so resistant, even to progress that seems so obvious now. And we see the same thing with AI. People worried about jobs, about it becoming uncontrollable.
But history shows us that progress usually wins. Just like with electricity, the internet, AI is becoming so woven into our lives that soon we won't remember what it was like without it. The key is making that transition thoughtfully, ethically.
And that's where AI in the military gets really interesting. And honestly, kind of terrifying.
There's a lot of talk about AI making warfare more precise, reducing civilian casualties, even helping with peacekeeping. But autonomous weapon systems, machines making life or death decisions without a human in the loop, that's a whole other can of worms.
And when you bring it back to that AI ratio thing, it raises huge questions about who's responsible. Like, if a machine makes a mistake, who takes the blame?
It's a whole new world, legally and ethically. We need to be having these conversations now before it's too late.
Definitely. But we shouldn't forget that AI has the potential to do a lot of good, right? Revolutionize healthcare, transportation, maybe even save the environment.
It all depends on us, how we choose to develop it and use it, which is why it's so important for everyone to understand AI, the good and the bad, and be part of the conversation about where it's all going.
I completely agree. But before we finish up, I want to go back to biomimicry for a minute. You mentioned the slime mold and the Japanese train system. Are there any other examples that really blew your mind?
Oh, tons. Like the Namibian beetle. It survives in the desert by collecting condensation on its back, because it has all these bumps.
Mm.
And that's actually led to new designs for water collection systems.
Mhm.
And then there's the gecko, how they can climb walls.
Yeah.
It's because of these tiny little hairs on their feet. And that's inspired the development of like super strong adhesives.
It's incredible how nature has already figured out so many things,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Problems we've been struggling with forever.
And it's not just about copying nature's designs directly, it's about understanding the principles behind them, the way natural systems work. So efficient and sustainable.
It's a good reminder that we don't always need to start from scratch. Sometimes the best solutions are already out there if we just pay attention.
Exactly. And that brings us back to observation, being curious, looking at the world with fresh eyes.
And speaking of fresh eyes, what about the potential for AI to help us improve our own observation skills? Like, could it help us see things we might normally miss?
That's a really interesting thought. We tend to think of AI as replacing human abilities, but it can also make them stronger.
Like a superpowered magnifying glass, helping us zoom in and see details and patterns we wouldn't normally notice.
Yeah. In fields like astronomy and medicine, AI is already being used to analyze huge amounts of data and spot anomalies that humans might overlook.
It's like having a second pair of eyes, constantly scanning and looking for something new.
And it's not just about visuals. AI can help us analyze sound, text, even, complex social interactions.
Like a sixth sense almost, a whole new way of perceiving the world.
And that's where things get really exciting. AI isn't just about solving problems, it's about understanding the world in a deeper way.
So it's not about natural intelligence versus artificial intelligence. It's about finding ways for both to work together to, complement each other.
Absolutely. And that brings us right back to collective intelligence. It's not just about individual brilliance anymore. It's about bringing together different perspectives, human ingenuity, and AI insights.
Which takes us back to one of the big questions we started with. How do we make sure that this collective intelligence benefits everyone?
It's about access, education, making sure that everybody has the opportunity to be a part of this, technological revolution.
And it's about values. Making sure AI is developed and used ethically, putting human well-being and social justice front and center.
It's a tall order, but I think we can do it. We've faced big challenges before, and we've always found a way.
And maybe, just maybe, this partnership between natural and artificial intelligence, that's the key to a better future for all of us.
Now that's a thought worth thinking about.
It really is a wild time to be alive, isn't it? I mean, with all this new technology, it feels like we're right on the edge of something huge.
Absolutely. And as we dive deeper into this world of intelligence, both natural and artificial, it's important to keep in mind that progress isn't always straightforward. There will be setbacks, unexpected roadblocks, ethical dilemmas we have to face.
And sometimes it's those unexpected aha moments that lead to the biggest breakthroughs, right? Like what happened with penicillin or the theory of relativity, even the Post-it note, for crying out loud.
Exactly. Those moments when someone suddenly sees the connections that nobody else saw before. That's real innovation. Think about Archimedes and his eureka moment. He was trying to figure out if a gold crown was pure gold, and while he was taking a bath, it hit him.
The volume of water that's pushed aside is equal to the volume of the object that's submerged.
Exactly. And bam, the principle of buoyancy was born, a fundamental concept in physics. And those intuitive leaps, that's what AI, at least for now, still struggles with.
AI is amazing at, crunching numbers, spotting patterns, making predictions, but that creative spark, thinking outside the box, that's still a very human thing.
It really is.
So we have to keep nurturing our own natural intelligence, our curiosity, our ability to think critically and connect the dots.
And one of the best ways to do that is to keep exposing ourselves to different perspectives, engaging in thought-provoking conversations, and always, always be looking for new knowledge and experiences.
It's like we're building a mental gym for our brains. The more we challenge ourselves, the stronger our thinking becomes.
Exactly. And that flexibility, that's going to be essential as we navigate this crazy world of intelligence, both natural and artificial.
So what does all of this mean for you, dear listener? It's pretty clear that both natural and artificial intelligence are incredibly powerful forces shaping our world. The key is to understand both the good and the bad, to embrace the potential while also recognizing the risks, and to never stop learning and thinking for yourself.
As you keep exploring this world of intelligence, remember this. The journey is just as important as the destination. Embrace the challenges, keep asking questions, seek out different points of view, and don't ever stop learning.
And don't be afraid to trust that gut feeling. Sometimes those deep insights, they don't come from some fancy algorithm. They come from that little voice inside you, the one that tells you to look deeper, to see the world in a new way.
Beautifully said. It's been a really fascinating deep dive, and I really hope our listeners feel empowered to go out and navigate this ever-changing world of intelligence.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. And until next time, keep those brains buzzing. And, one of the best ways to do that, to, keep challenging ourselves, is to make sure we're getting exposed to different ways of thinking, different perspectives,
Right.
having those, challenging conversations,
Yeah.
always looking for new information, new experiences.
It's all about, feeding our minds,
Hmm.
nurturing that creative spark.
It really is like working out, but for our brains.
Yeah, a mental gym.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The more we challenge those brain muscles, the stronger and more flexible they get.
And that flexibility is going to be so important as we try to navigate this whole, crazy world of intelligence, natural and artificial.
So what does all this mean for you, our amazing listeners? Well, one thing's for sure. Both natural and artificial intelligence are incredibly powerful forces that are shaping our world.
Right.
And the key is to understand both the good and the bad, to embrace the potential of AI, but also to recognize the risks that come with it, and to never stop learning, never stop thinking for yourself.
And as you keep, exploring this world of intelligence, remember this. The journey itself is just as important as where you end up. Embrace the challenges, don't be afraid to ask questions, seek out different points of view, and never stop learning.
And you know what? Don't be afraid to trust your gut. Sometimes the most profound insights, they don't come from some complex algorithm. They come from that quiet voice inside you, the one that tells you to look deeper.
Beautifully said. It's been such a fascinating deep dive. I really hope our listeners feel equipped to go out there and navigate this ever-changing landscape of intelligence.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. And until next time, keep those brains buzzing.